Rosann, we've known each other for 3 decades.
Yes, a long time.
And you have been a professional counselor.
As you have been a professional counselor, how many people have we known in Hong Kong?
Yes, quite a lot.
So many different people.
And so many changes.
And that's why we want to think about women now and women then, and how women have changed over these years.
That must be very interesting.
Yes.
And it covered different generations.
Always.
Well, if they're interested in what we are talking about, how are they going to find us?
They're going to find us Tuesday night, 9 o'clock, PsychoAlchemy. We are Women Now and Then.
See you there.
Hello, everyone. We're back again this week. You're with Women Now and Then, and Dorothy and Rosann, and we can remind you that we're each both experienced counselors. We're veteran counselors. We've been working in Hong Kong for the past 30 years. One of the things we talked about last week was identity. We were talking about our own identities when Dorothy left Hong Kong and came to the United States, and I left the United States and came to Hong Kong. So our comparisons of women now and then are women of 2 generations and cross-cultural differences, and how our ideas about self and identity actually were started, and how they evolved, and how they changed, and now how we recognize the changes in our identity. Fundamental to identity is the whole question of the woman's body. As we said in our introductory talk, we're going to be talking about identity, and then women's bodies and women's health. They go side by side, women's bodies and women's health. And then money and finances, because no woman ever has enough money. And our 4th big topic is relationships. We'll cover these over the series. So some will be at least one whole session, and sometimes it will take more than one session. And we keep living longer, so we've got to move on. Now, identity got us as far as women in their 50s, women in their 60s, and we've had a few of you write in, you want more about condoms and purchasing condoms on your own. Seems a lot of women have not purchased condoms. Let me assure you, it's the easiest thing possible. You're going to buy candies, you're going to buy sweets, you're going to buy blueberries. Buy condoms. You can use them yourself, or other people might need them. You never know when people might need a condom. So that's one part of women's health. Now, we're getting there, but let's go to, where does women's consciousness begin that she has a female body? When do you think girls know that they're different from boys, that the care of the female body demands something different from the care of the male body?
Well, maybe in a Chinese family, we are not that open-minded in talking about our body. And honestly, if I didn't go to a American primary and secondary school run by the Marino sisters, I think like a lot of the people in Hong Kong, talking about our body is still a taboo. Like I remember when I was younger, my parents both have to work. It's kind of not very ordinary at that time. At that time, most mother will stay home, but my mother decided to help my father in his business. So I would say she was one of those career women at that time, right? She worked with my father, and at that time we do have a Chinese maid to help in the family, and her responsibility also include giving me and my brother a bath. Right? But my experience of this woman giving me a bath is more like torture than enjoyment, because to her she has to clean the house, take care of the children, and at that time most people are working very hard, right? So even though we had my family had a family business, we don't make a lot of money. So my parents have to rent out 2 rooms in the
Yes.
apartment
Yes.
in order to make more money.
Yes.
So you can imagine this maid, Xiu Jie, right? She actually had to do a lot of house cleaning.
Yes.
And she even had to clean up these 2 kids,
Oh.
right? So I sometimes feel like I'm just like a furniture. She'll just go chuck, 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 chit, 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 and. So I never really feel that my body is something that is so precious, right? And
Wow.
I think until I was 8 years old,
Yes.
and my father's sisters and auntie Gu Jie, she lived in Macau, and
Yes.
occasionally she would come to Hong Kong to visit my father and my
Yes.
mother, right, the brother
Yes.
and the sister-in-law.
Yeah.
And she was such an angel, and she would just say, maybe I'll help with the bath,
Ah,
right?
so the auntie helped.
Right. It's totally different.
Really?
And then I realized there's certain part of my body that needs to be cleaned. So I always think that, and a better way to describe to the audience is, I used to think they just clean the surface of my body. And if I'm a refrigerator, they never open up the refrigerator to clean the rest of it. Right?
Of course.
So and that was like the first time, wow, she really cleaned me up. Right? And she
Yeah.
told me, Dorothy, there's certain part of your female body that you
Yes.
need to clean too. I said, oh, really?
Really? Yes.
Yeah. I don't know
Oh.
about the Western culture.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's so many stories. Well, thank you for telling us that, Dorothy. That's a great story. It's a wonderful story. To relay, I have a sister just 1 year younger, and bath time was simply put the 2 girls in the tub and that was it. Nobody washed us. We played with bubble bath and then you got out. There
Yeah.
was no attention to any part of the body. When I realized I was a girl becoming a woman, it was a shocking experience.
Wow.
I was getting ready for school one day and my mother picked up my pajamas and she said, Rosann, you've gotten your period. I had no idea what she was talking about. But she showed me this blood stain on my pajamas and I thought, well, how did that happen? There was no talk before that happened. So how old was I? Probably about 12, maybe 11 or 12. And I just was aghast. Where did this come from? How did it appear? What should I do? And then she showed me some handmade sanitary napkins.
Oh, right.
Not
At the time.
store-bought, handmade. She had a box of them in a shoebox, ready for me.
Oh, I see.
So what is, some of you might not know, you're all too young and living in such privileged lives. A handmade sanitary napkin is a piece of cloth, probably the size of a man's handkerchief, with some rags laid out in the center, and then the cloths fold over and over and over until it's like a bandage that could fit between your legs.
Right.
And you pinned it. A belt was made from an old nylon stocking. You pinned it in the front and pinned in the back. And girls had to learn to walk with this bulky homemade sanitary napkin between their legs. Now, I thought that this was the way everybody lived, because who did you talk to about sanitary napkins when you're 12 years old? But when I was teaching in China, and I had some all-girls sections, many of the girls told me that, of course, their mothers made homemade sanitary napkins, and their mothers who lived in the rural areas, and now that they were in colleges and universities in China, they still made their own sanitary napkins.
Really?
They washed them out, but they hung them behind the dorm. The lines were strung up for drying the rags in the sunshine behind the dorms, because you would not want anyone to see the washing of the rags. So this is quite a phenomenal
When was
subject.
that?
That was 20 years ago.
Okay,
20 years
so
ago.
it's 90s.
After I met you, and I was touring schools,
I see.
looking at home and family life programs.
Oh, I see, I see.
Now that content, that specific content of how you clean, how you dry, how you make homemade sanitary napkins is not known very widely now, but we do have many, many examples of new styles of handmade sanitary napkins for rural India, certain parts of Africa, even in the rest of Southeast Asia. Because where can women get the store-bought sanitary napkins? And besides, they're very expensive and they cannot be used over again.
Yes, yes.
Now, an interesting anecdote on this is that women find that many who are interested in the environment find that our constant use of these commercial sanitary napkins are not good for the environment at all. Not good for the environment at all. So it's also possible to buy rags online and have them sent to you so you can make your own sanitary napkin. Now, is that not a story of one generation and another,
Yes,
and East and West?
yes, yes.
Now, I want to go back to my mother instructing me to wear this sanitary pad and to change it. And it was then that I began to realize, gee, women have a lot of troubles if you got to remember the sanitary pad.
Yes, yes. And you also have to do all the cleaning. Kind of messy too.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
since we are one decade age-wise difference, I think I already no need to do all this like a handkerchief folding process.
Yes.
I already have something that can disposable. But my experience of my menstruation was pretty bad because I have severe cramp.
Ah, yes.
Very painful. And I think at that time I was around 12, 13 and at my secondary school. And every month I literally were in so much pain. I need to walk all the way down maybe 4th floor to the school, how to say, is it a secretary office? And I would just do this, and they open the glass door and they look at me and say, oh, go home lah. It's like I was in such pain.
Oh,
my face all turned pale.
Yes.
And it's like I'm going to faint anytime. I'm not just an actress, right? Acting, want to go home. But the cramp was so severe, and because mine is an all girls school, the secretary already know what's going on. You know, it's no time, it's no point of putting her in a bed to rest. It's so painful. I must go home. So my experience of my womanhood was pretty bad, and my mom at that time had no idea what to do, and she just as a result she took me to our family physician.
Oh yes.
At that time,
of course,
we were too young for a gynecologist, right?
Of course.
Then I remember Dr. Chow said something so humorous to my mom. That pain won't go away until she got married. And that's something I always remember.
Wow.
Okay, so get married is the only way to cure this problem. And the other thing he gave me, he immediately inscribed like 40 tablets. And I remember that it's Ponstan. Do you know Ponstan? It's not like a Panadol.
Yes.
Yellow and green. He gave me a whole bottle of those
for use one time.
For whenever you feel the pain.
Need. Oh.
And so my experience of menstruation cramp, is to get married and to have this yellow and green Ponstan. And that I have been eating that all the way up to maybe my first marriage.
Wow.
You can imagine how many painkiller
Dorothy.
intake.
Yes. Yes, but the pain is real.
Right.
Now, for our younger viewers, our older viewers, some women get cramps, some women do not get cramps.
Yeah, they are very lucky.
and the cramps are in the lower part of the abdomen. Some women get a backache.
Yes.
And it's also painful for such women. Other women get headaches. Some women get headaches, backaches, and cramps.
And the breast.
And the breasts are tender.
Oh, very, how to say?
Tender.
Tender, right.
Easily feel pain.
Yeah.
You feel like the bra is very tight. Now, young girls, how can you discuss these symptoms with boys and girls in the classroom? So in schools, we ask, can there be some all-girls sections so that we can talk about what happens with the onset of menstruation, what's going on internally in your body to prepare you for having children. Do 12-year-olds really want to hear about being prepared for having children?
You know, Rosann, actually my first sex education was from a video. Obviously, because Maryknoll is American system.
Yes.
They brought something from the United States.
Right.
And I remember once, I think for maybe primary 6 or even form 1, I cannot even remember, 11, 12, 13, we all have to sit in an assembly and they play this awful video.
Was it awful?
Really frightening
Oh my
about
God.
having baby.
Ah,
Because we are all girls school, so we all this age, we just, you imagine, we just, it's like, you remember all the girls like, and I remember at that time, after that show, a lot of us just sit around and say, we don't want to have babies.
yes.
No way we are going to have babies. So bloody.
So bloody. Yes.
And that's our first sex education. And it's sad because I would say it's the good intention of the Maryknoll sisters to have this video and show to all of us. But the thing is, there is no after video discussion or sharing. We don't have some good teachers like you. I mean, I can imagine if at that time after the show, they have somebody like Dr. Gao, and you will stand up and explain a lot of things. It will take away my nightmare. It's really bad.
Wow.
Our sex education was really a nightmare at that time.
Yes.
But compared to a lot of the schools at that time,
Yes.
we are considered as band one
Advanced.
school.
Yeah.
Oh, really
You were
advanced.
advanced.
We are
really
very advanced.
Of course. Of course. Well, we're in focus. We're talking about women's bodies and women's health. So some of the most natural of women's functions involve blood. Menstruation.
Yes.
You do pregnancy. That means no blood. Birth, a lot of blood. And you're back on menstruation again. Menopause, no blood. Now, I've left out the first time a woman has sexual intercourse because it's now questionable whether a woman bleeds or doesn't bleed. Major area of discussion for people who are having sexual intercourse for the first time. Let me just say a point on that. Some women bleed, some women do not bleed. Has to do with the structure of the hymen, which we'll discuss at another time, because this program is supposed to be overall on women's health. Women's health has so much to do with the age of the woman.
Yes.
Dorothy and I each spoke to you about our first awareness of going from girl to woman. Girl to woman. There are years of exploration
Yes.
as to whether you have to learn about developing breasts. Oh, girls compare it because it's so obvious. The boys all know whose breasts are developing faster than others. They know that for sure. Girls have learned to talk about it, but do you touch your own body? Do you touch your body when you're a teenager? In teaching sex education in Hong Kong secondary schools, one of the most fascinating questions of the boys is, do girls ever masturbate? Now, the girls say, why do the boys want to know that? Boys masturbate all the time. You see them touching themselves all the time. They even touch themselves in class. This is not a good thing. So when the laughter dies down about the boys in masturbation, the question comes up, Dr. Gallo, you didn't say anything about girls and masturbation. Now, has that ever come up in any of your counseling sessions?
Oh, definitely. And but it's maybe cultural difference.
Cultural difference.
When we do couple counseling, marriage counseling,
Yeah.
all these about sex, masturbation part usually happen near the last 3 minutes of our counseling
Really?
hour.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
Chinese, even though they have so many problems with sex,
Yeah.
like at their marriage, they don't want to talk about it. They will wait, and usually by our hours, 55 minutes, they will say, Dorothy, by the way, is it okay for me to talk about me and my wife's sex life? I said, it's almost.
You waited till the end. You waited till the end to say, well, of course, let's start. Yes.
Well, actually, because this is such a juicy part of
Oh, yeah.
our 1 hour, so
Yes.
maybe we end now. So when we come back, we are going to be starting with a juicy part of sex and masturbation. Why not,
Sex and
right?
masturbation,
Yeah,
onto that.
Let's do that.